The following program is paid for by the Real Estate Radio Network.
You're listening to Real Estate Radio Fresno on 105.9 The FM KMJ. Now, live in studio, your host, local real estate expert, Craig Barton.
Good morning, Central Valley. I'm your host, Craig Barton, and welcome to the Real Estate Radio Network, the most important hour of radio each week here on 105.9 The FM KMJ. Real Estate Radio is a show dedicated to bringing some rational thought to the crazy world that we live in and helping you to rebuild the Central Valley's housing and credit markets. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted advice, and that's exactly what you are going to hear every Sunday morning from 7 to 8 a.m. right here on 105.9 The FM KMJ. You were just rolling with the music, weren't you?
I was. Well, yeah.
It's awfully early.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Did you get the memo from Skip?
No.
Yeah.
What
was
say?
the memo?
It was kind of talking about you need to...
I'm being have.
You're being have.
I'm trying.
You're back on your meds.
It's like the mics went on all of a sudden.
I'm trying to be
quiet in here.
Well, when my boss says to me, you were kind of all over the board last week, I went, back it up, truck. Back up the truck.
Yeah, there's such a thing as too much.
I was having a really good time last week on the show. And I got some great calls from it. So I'm just saying, hey, for those of you outside who enjoyed
just keep it rolling.
Thank you. We appreciate your calls. They did.
It's the subdued Michelle this week.
I know. I'm trying. It's work.
Okay, there's a happy medium. Somewhere in there's a happy place where it's on medium.
Oh, I'm always in a happy place. Don't think I'm not. I'm just trying not to,
Yeah, as always, it's so good to have Michelle Pettiscavalli, licensed... Over-exude, great. Licensed real estate professional from Valley-Wide Homes.
Hey, Gregor. Good morning.
Good morning. How you doing, kid?
I'm good. Glad to
Awesome.
be here.
We're also real fortunate. Miss Kate Island, back from assignment from Cyprus.
Yes.
With the latest update on exactly what those Russian folks were doing this week.
I have some
They
questions.
were not getting money out of their banks.
They were,
I will tell you that much.
just a little bit of that, huh?
Yes.
They were on lockdown.
Yes.
Yep.
I can't wait to hear that.
Yeah. Kate with UBS Financial Services. Yeah. And her film crew. Here in the studio this morning.
Film crew.
Yeah, we're going to be on. We're going to be posting that to the website later. Yep.
Oh, good.
Great.
I love pictures.
Yeah, you love. I love pictures and stick art.
Absolutely.
Yes. The Real Estate Radio Network gives us the opportunity to reach so many people efficiently for one full hour each and every week. And must I say, we don't want to make real estate one-dimensional, right? Extremely important. Our goal with the Real Estate Radio Network is to get you, our listeners, the timely and accurate truth.
Hold on. Did you bring me some glasses?
About your local real estate market.
Like the 3D glasses.
So
it's not one-dimensional. What
can
dimensions
help
are
bring
we?
you back home.
All right. I'm hushing.
Yeah, one-dimensional. Yeah, exactly.
We're not one-dimensional, you said.
No. We're not going to be
helping
one-dimensional.
to make it.
We're trying to, bring,
I'm only here for clarity.
Yeah, exactly. We're trying to bring some clarity and bring some education as far as the market's concerned to our consumers, to our listeners here in the Central Valley. But we're also not wanting to make it boring.
Amen. Can I
Thank
say
you.
amen? Happy Sunday. Amen.
Yeah.
Because I honestly, sometimes it can be a little dismal out there if you hear the press too much and hear what they're... I'd like people to know there is hope.
There's good things going on.
Good
in
things
Central
going
Valley.
on. Yes.
Well,
okay,
speaking
thank
of
you.
good things, did you know that housing prices gain? It's a signal that the U.S. rental bonanza... Did
Little Joe come out?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the rental bonanza may be coming to an end.
Aww.
Yeah, unfortunately for
sad.
investors, if you're holding real estate, if you're holding real estate right at the moment in the wrong market, it could be a bad thing.
Right.
Also, home value growth to exceed pre-bubble rates by 2017. That's a scary date.
I'd like you to explain that one a little further.
Yeah, exactly. We will. And what are the 10 states with the most dangerous potential for foreclosure flare-ups?
Wow. Do we have some medicine
Right,
for
because
that?
I actually did read something about this maybe this week or last week, that banks are starting to pick up on their foreclosures. Like foreclosure activity is picking up a little bit.
In certain areas.
Right.
In certain areas.
In certain
flare-ups.
areas.
Yeah.
Okay.
So do we have foreclosure medicine for those folks?
We do.
Good,
We have
good.
flare-up medicine for that.
Good,
exactly.
good.
The doctor is in the
Doctor's in the
Well,
house.
I should be embarrassed that I said that. Right?
No, it's all right.
And where hasn't housing hit the bottom yet? Can't believe that there
So there are still places where prices are going
where
down?
prices are going down.
How sad.
And they probably won't hit the bottom all this year.
No way, really?
Yeah, really, exactly. And there's a Minnesota lawmaker who wants to revamp the mortgage interest deduction.
Are you kidding me?
How so?
No, yeah.
Like take it away?
Yeah, like cut it in half.
It goes really way. How are you going to revamp? You're not going to give us a better deduction.
So
I'm going to
revamp.
guess.
That means you're going to still leave it in place, but you're going to like pretty it up and make it something different. And we're also going to take some listener questions. Make sure you stay with us. Again, if you have any real estate or mortgage related questions or questions about your situation and what we might be able to do to help, it all starts with one call, and that's a call from you. Call us anytime, 800-979-3958. Again, that's 800-979-3958. You can also go to our website. People have been doing that a lot lately. I am amazed.
Really?
Seriously.
That's great.
We get an email confirmation every single time someone goes to the website and signs up. And also every time they go into the website and actually save an actual listing that they like.
Oh, that's great.
And it helps us do a better job of really addressing their needs. What can we do to help? Mm-hmm. Yeah, go to our website, Fresnohomes.com, to search for your new home. To friend us on Facebook, use Press 4 keywords.
Friend Valley White on Facebook.
Or use Press 4 keywords.
KMJ, call Valley White.
If you'd like to call into us anytime, not just during the show, but it could be after the show, during the week, give us a call. Well, you heard us mention Press 4. Press 4 is for all those times that you're away from the computer, and we'd like to help share information to you. You don't really have access to a computer keyboard. You just hit that little orange ball on your phone once you've followed the easy setup instructions, and we'll start sharing information with you. All you have to do is call Press 4, use the keywords, and you can call into Valley Wired. You can friend us on Facebook. You can do all sorts of other stuff. Pretty
tricky.
Cool.
You're tricky.
Tricky, yeah.
Tricky.
Yeah. I'm tech savvy.
Is that it?
Yeah, I don't know about that, but
that's impressive.
It's impressive. Wow, thank you. Well, let's take a look at today's hot property. Today's hot property is brought to you by Perfect Inspections. Whether it's residential, multifamily, or commercial, use Press 4 keywords, Perfect Home Inspections. Or you can call Jerry Schooley today for your perfect home inspection at 352-6941. Again, that's 352-6941. Today's hot property is a HUD home. Property is located at 4777 North Rummy Avenue. Again, not really sure whether it's Roomy or Rummy. Fresno, California, 93723. Major cross streets are Barstow and Grantland. This 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 2,436 square foot home, built in 2008, was appraised at $225,000. It's eligible for FHA financing. There are no repairs that are required per FHA in order to get an FHA loan. This property, as we mentioned, was already appraised, so if you're a buyer, it'll save you $450, or if you're an agent, it will save your buyer $450, which is a nice little
absolutely
housewarming gift.
Every bit helps.
Yeah, exactly. If you'd like more information about today's hot property, please give us a call anytime. 800-979-3958. Michelle will be happy to help. Again, that's 800-979-3958. And we'll send you more information about this hot property right to your phone. Look for more hot properties each week right here on the Real Estate Radio Network. Well, here we go. 1,038 active listings in Fresno County. And one of the things that I'll say is this, is we're going to talk a little bit later. One of our listener questions is when you've got an investor that's coming into a market and says, hey, me and my wife, we want to get started. We want to become flippers. And we just had a question like that, kind of similar to it about 5 or 6 weeks ago. But I just got asked the question again this week. I think it's really important that we kind of address it because I've spoken with a couple flippers here in Fresno County as of late. Kind of important that we set the expectation as far as, so what are they experiencing? And I think it's important that we bring that to light and make sure that other folks understand, hey, if you've got this wacky idea that you want to be an investor, you want to buy and you want to fix and you want to flip in today's market, what do you expect? And what better to get the input of or the insight of someone that's doing it
it's
right now.
Actually flipping the houses.
Exactly, exactly. So, top stories in the news. House price gains could signal an end to the U.S. rental bonanza. Rents for single-family homes are rising slower than property prices as firms such as Blackstone Group Limited Partnership flood the market with homes for lease. Obviously, this is a little different strategy that we've seen in the past where they're trying to get folks into properties or these large real estate investment trusts. They buy low, sell high.
Yeah, Blackstone is a huge group, and they bought up a ton of residential property. Yeah.
Exactly. So they want to get those properties leased. Well, guess what? Starting to soften the market.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean,
because people are just more interested in the gains that they can get by owning a home as opposed to renting a place.
But not only that, I mean, it's that balance.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you still have rental apartments, you still have those
right.
commercial type developments, and then you bring in all of this additional housing, and it affects both of those entities as well. So your apartment complexes are going to suffer because those folks are moving into these rental houses.
Yeah.
Right.
But then you also have too many rental houses on the market
right.
to sustain. So you've got two entities.
3-4 years ago, the big question in my mind was so many investors coming into the market, leveraging their money because the return on investment was great because home affordability has just been amazing over the last couple of years. Well, at what point were we going to have too many investors that were coming in, buying and long-term hold? Not necessarily the flippers, because the flippers, their issues are different. But those that are looking for a long-term hold, at what point does the market get soft? Because they're thinking, hey, all these folks that lost their home or short-sold their home need a place to go in the interim. Mm-hmm. And if they are going to become a renter and want a single-family residence, I want to be there to hook them up.
I mean, we've seen builders convert to rentals on their standing inventory back in the day. I mean, we've got builders out there with rentals who have rentals in their neighborhoods. Oh yeah. So it made a lot of sense at the time, because if you had standing inventory, then you make it a rental. So until the market came back a little bit for that particular neighborhood or subdivision that you were working on, you rent it out.
Right.
And 3 years made sense.
Yeah.
Whereas holding it for 20 years may not make sense.
Okay, so do you think that then the inventory of homes for sale might increase? Because if it's harder to find renters and you own rental properties, are you more inclined, especially because prices have come up, are you more inclined to sell?
Well,
and will that alleviate some of the supply-demand pressures?
I don't think it's a big enough of a trickle. I mean, I think it is just that. I think it would be a trickle.
It's a trickle. Yeah. I agree it's a trickle, but it's also a trickle that's going to be limited because they put money into those properties to restore them. So their return isn't necessarily going to be there immediately for sale.
Right. Or they might have to bring the rental prices down to really make the decision
to sell
easier,
it.
Right?
To sell it, they may not recoup what they've put into it, I guess.
Right.
And another stat here, Kate, you had mentioned Blackstone, a New York based, and one of the world's largest private equity firms, has spent more than $3.5 billion to buy, at minimum, 20,000 single-family rentals.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I think I want to say they're the biggest as far as owners, like if a large corporation owns single-family homes, I think that they are the biggest.
There's another one here, Tom Barak, out of Santa Monica. It's a California-based Colony Capital, LLC, has also raised in excess of $2.2 billion.
Wow.
So they have investors behind it.
Oh, sure.
So it's about the return, though. At the end of the day, it's going to be about return.
Yeah,
long-term
however you
hold
can
or
make
sell.
money. Yeah, absolutely. So they might end up selling those properties. I wonder what they're going to buy next then.
Yeah. Well,
Have them call you, Kate.
Kate. I've got a hot stock for you.
You heard it here. Hot stock tip here Sunday morning, Real Estate Radio. There you go. So anybody ever wonder at what point are we going to, as we see growth here in Fresno County and California in general? Well, there's a survey and that home value growth is expected to exceed pre-bubble rates.
Okay, wait, slow down. When you say pre-bubble rates, pre-bubble rates as far as
how quickly home prices were going up,
or are you talking about?
So what was a pre-bubble growth rate?
So let's break it down here. Housing forecasters remain optimistic that property values will continue to increase over the next several years and exceed pre-bubble rates by 2017. Now, based on predictions from 118 economists, real estate experts, and investment and market strategists, these respondents believe that home prices will end up 2013 up on average of 4.2% and rise cumulatively by 22% over the next 5 years. So just to give you an example.
Okay, now, 4 or 5% a year.
That's not, the 22% is not as big a scary number as I thought it could potentially be, because what we've seen in California over the last year was 14.1%.
Right.
So the pace will cool its jets. that's for sure.
Point, right.
Based upon these predictions. But nonetheless, it's still a little scary.
Yeah. And I wonder what those economists' interest rate projections are as well. Do they think that then interest rates are going to stay at these, around these levels, and that's what's going to continue to fuel home prices?
Well,
do you know what I mean?
Or slow the market, per se. Because
if rates go up, that's what I'm saying. I wonder where these economists are thinking that rates are going to go, because that obviously has to factor in the housing
part
value
of their projection
growth rate.
is exactly. So what happens as far as inflation is concerned over the next 5 years? Well, I guarantee you, I shouldn't say I guarantee, but you hit it right on the head. there's got to be some quote-unquote inflation that's factored in
there to be.
That has had a huge impact on interest rates. Now, granted, 3.5% or 3.25% on an FHA loan right at the moment, and in 2 years it's going to be 5%. Still amazing, but nonetheless, it is going to put a little bit of a kibosh on some of that growth.
Right.
Yep.
Well, then just the inflation story. I mean, right now inflation is less than 2%. This is core inflation, and it's not a concern for the feds, which is why this week they held rates. Not just held rate steady, but they're continuing their bond buying because inflation is not an issue. But if you're thinking that on a national level, home prices are going to go up 4 or 5% a year, there's no way that won't bleed through to the rest of the economy and create higher inflation. So at one point then, does the increase in the value of homes actually kind of become a negative for the economy?
A negative detractor,
right, because of the inflation story, and more to the inflation story because of what it might do to QE.
Yeah, as big an impetus as it could be.
This is interesting. Yeah. This is interesting. Housing is so funny because it was such a terrible part of our economy for so long, and now it's coming back, and it's coming back with a vengeance. And now it's like we kind of have to be careful about how much it's great for the economy. You kind of have to be careful about how much it's coming back,
and they kind of have to be careful how they manipulate it. Because there are a lot of
that big
what do we say? It is not one-dimensional.
The markets are being manipulated.
Well,
Michelle,
that's my point.
What have you been reading?
One-dimensional. So they start manipulating too much on the left.
There's lots of inputs. There's lots
go
of
on the
inputs.
right,
Exactly.
up and down. I mean, there's all sorts of pieces.
Yeah. Wouldn't you like to know the top 10 states with the most dangerous potential for foreclosure flare-ups? Yeah. Foreclosures are dropping nationwide, but some states are still struggling with elevated levels of distressed homes. For the 6th month in a row, Florida has the highest foreclosure rate in the nation, and in February it showed more than triple the national average. Florida's foreclosure filings are up 20% in February from a year ago and are at a 16-month high, as reported by Realty Track. So what do you think? The top 10 states with the highest foreclosure rates in the country as of February. For Florida, number 1. Number 2, Nevada.
I was going to say.
It's a gamble, baby.
Yeah.
It's a gamble.
It's a gamble. Yeah. No pun intended.
So then Arizona has to be 1. Is Michigan 1?
Yep.
Arizona is 1.
Illinois is number 3. Number 4 is Ohio.
Well, because
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Number 5 is Washington. State of Washington, not Washington,
really?
D.C. Number 6 is Arizona. Number 7 is Georgia. Now, keep in mind, some of these markets that we've discussed already, Illinois, Illinois, Ohio, Georgia, and Michigan. And we pulled some stats, I don't know, within the last quarter in terms of active inventory in those markets, and it was Georgia, as an example, Atlanta. There was 20,000 active listings. Ohio.
In Atlanta.
Okay.
Not
Not
Georgia.
Right, just in Atlanta.
It was
That's
amazing.
a high number, right?
Yep.
Exactly.
Okay.
We have less than 1,100.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know what I find really interesting about this list?
Yeah.
Is I'm wondering, like, some of them I see, like Florida, Nevada, vacation, more seniors prevalent in those areas, maybe second home type situations.
Well, and there was lots of speculative buying in
a lot
those areas,
of speculative buying.
Yeah.
But then you see Ohio, Washington, Georgia. I mean, are we just a lack of industry? Are those military type? I mean, Washington has a ton of military.
Ohio could be because, like, the amount of jobs that were lost there.
Industry related.
Michigan as well.
Right.
Ohio
but then if you see a higher inventory, it means that prices aren't going up as quickly as they are, say, in like a California or like a Fresno, right? So if prices aren't going up, people are staying underwater in their mortgages, more likely to foreclose, right? But what's causing the huge supply?
Exactly.
Like, so what is that?
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, good question.
You're supposed to know that.
Yeah, first.
Right, it's more than one-dimensional case.
Oh, okay.
That was a direct question.
Okay.
Wow, okay.
Some of these flare-ups that are popping up where foreclosures they're estimating that it's also in part due to a lengthy foreclosure process.
Right. California, we're pretty blessed. It's quick, quick.
Is it?
We're slowing it down.
Off
It's
with
been
your
so
head,
quick.
right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And where hasn't the housing market hit bottom?
Again.
And probably won't all year long. Well, we've been hearing lots of good news about that. Yeah, exactly. Detroit.
Michigan or Detroit is always the answer whenever you're talking about crappy housing market.
You pick any spot downtown within a half-mile radius, there's nobody to be found and lots of empty buildings, right?
Oof, yeah,
we've been hearing lots of good news about the housing market lately, and nationally we hit a bottom in October of 2011. Well, Zillow, our friends at Zillow, and home values ended up 2012 another 5.9% over year end of 2011. The current national median housing price is $158,100. Now, of the 260 metro areas, 239 are estimated to have already hit bottom. Fresno would be one of those and are already climbing out. But that still leaves 21 metro areas that haven't seen their lowest point yet.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So where are those?
Yeah, number 9, Hartford, Connecticut. Interesting.
Really?
Yeah.
Connecticut.
Is that, well, isn't that a fairly well-to-do area?
Generally.
Yeah. Maybe that's...
Median home sales price, $206,800.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I swear Detroit's on that list.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Stop bashing
for sure.
Detroit.
Hey,
Kate.
I'm a Michiganite.
A Michiganite?
Yeah, I went to U of M. It's my alumni.
They call them Michiganites?
So I get to bash on Detroit.
That's like Clovicites.
Clovicites, yeah.
Michiganites. It's like
maybe
a
that's
bug.
not the word.
You know, the ITE sounds like it's a pest. We need an inspection,
Really?
I'm thinking.
I'm a Wolverine.
Did you know also that there's a Minnesota, you're a Wolverine. You are at that, Kate. There's a Minnesota lawmaker that wants to revamp the mortgage interest deduction so that more borrowers would receive the tax break and then use the anticipated savings to invest in low and moderate income housing. As it stands, borrowers can deduct the interest on the first, and I can see where this would be totally helpful, on the first $1.1 million that they pay on their home loan, but under Representative Keith Ellison, a Democrat, introduced this last Friday that would cap, would be lowered to $500,000.
Okay, clear me up here.
So if your mortgage is more than $500,000, they're going to start
The interest that you pay. The interest that you pay on that mortgage.
Oh, okay.
And how many of the population do you think that would touch? What's our percentage?
Yeah, I don't know.
But again, it's those nasty rich people. How dare they?
And this is a Democrat putting this out there. Okay.
I resemble that remark.
And my question is, first of all, it's going to affect fewer people than it took to write the darn thing.
No, seriously.
And what a waste of money that we continue
really, truly,
to watch.
what leverage are we going to really see out of this?
None.
And do you know what's going to happen? Because people that have a mortgage where they're paying $500,000 in interest, I bet a good number of them can actually just go ahead and pay cash for the house. So if you take that deduction away, done.
Bye-bye.
You're going to get rid of the entire thing.
Well, I just find it to be
That's
silly.
stupid.
Let's look at the pros and the cons of the things we put into legislation.
How about instead of addressing these points in the tax code that really aren't going to make any difference as far as revenue goes, let's just fix it so there's some simple tax legislation in place so that people can, whatever, have it a progressive tax if you want it, have a 3-tiered tax system.
There you go.
Fix that instead of monkeying with these things that will literally make no bit of difference.
Something tells me that this gentleman was down at the country club this last weekend and having a conversation with a few of his constituents over a cocktail or two. And
on the taxpayer's dollar.
Yes.
On the taxpayer.
That was
it was an expensible.
Even though his expense account had been sequestered. Yes. Again, if you have any real estate mortgage questions, real estate or mortgage related questions, or questions regarding the information that you hear on the show, it all starts with one call. We'd love to hear from you guys. Please give us a call anytime. 800-979-3958. Again, that's 800-979-3958. You can also go to our website, search for your new home at FresnoHomes.com. You can also listen to past shows from the Real Estate Radio Network on our website. To friend us on Facebook, use Press 4 keywords.
Friend Valley White on Facebook.
Or use Press 4 keywords.
KMJ, call Valley White.
To call into the show anytime. During the show, after the show, we'd love to hear from you. Well, coming up, as we mentioned, we've got Kate Island with UBS Financial Services here in our studio for our Market Watch update. Make sure you stay with us. You are listening to the Real Estate Radio Network, helping to redefine real estate here on 105.9, the FM KMJ.
This program is brought to you by the Real Estate Radio Network. Visit realestateradio.us for more info. That's realestateradio.us.
Mortgage interest rates are at historic lows, and there's never been a more affordable time to buy real estate. Whether you're looking for your first home, moving up, or your next income-producing property, let the mortgage professionals at Valley White help. Valley White Homes has been helping homeowners with their mortgage needs since 1997. When it comes to the Valley's real estate, we know our way around the neighborhood. Call toll-free, 800-979-3958, and put the seasoned professionals at Valley White Homes to work for you. Valley White Homes, NMLS number 342062, 235-952. California Department of Real Estate License 0122-8460. Have you ever thought about going solar? It's never been easier to go solar than with a SunPower lease. You'll start saving money the very first day. Arise Solar has a team of energy consultants ready to help you determine if going solar is right for you. Start taking control of your energy costs. Contact Arise Solar, your local SunPower Elite dealer at 449-8989. That's Arise Solar at 449-8989. Or use press 4 keywords, Arise Solar.
Did you know that all the tickets you can buy on different websites come from the same place? Did you know that you can buy every ticket you need to any event in the country, the whole country, from Pete's Seats right here in Fresno? If that's the case, you need to call Pete's Seats. Any ticket, anytime. Sports, concerts, theater. Hey, there's seats, and then there's Pete's Seats. Premium tickets for all events, local, national, worldwide. Don't settle for a regular seat when you can get a really good Pete's Seat. Online at petesseats.net or simply 294-SEAT. That's 294-7328.
How much should I be saving? When can I retire? What can I do to ensure that my estate will be left in the hands of my family once I'm gone? Is my hard-earned money safe in today's markets?
With all the uncertainty in today's world, all of us at the Island Group know it is our job to provide answers to these questions. Walk with us, the Island Group at UBS Financial Services. Call me, Kate Island, at 559-248-4097. That's 559-248-4097, and take the first step in protecting your financial future.
All rights reserved. UBS Financial Services, Inc. is a subsidiary of UBS AG. Member SIPC.
You're listening to Real Estate Radio Network with local expert Craig Barton. Now, here's Craig.
For Sunday morning, we're just having way too much fun in the studio. And that includes Johnny. So, as I mentioned before we went to break, we've got Kate Island with the UBS Financial Services here in the studio for our Market Watch update. Lots of goings on.
This is a busy week this week.
Yeah,
Did you bring a map?
I did. So
I'm kind of not sure where Cyprus is. It's like in the
Mediterranean, south of Turkey. Just south of Turkey.
Oh, well, that explains it all.
There you go. Everybody wants to be south of Turkey.
In the water.
So when we were coming in this morning outside the KMJ studios, there was these really shady-looking individuals.
Talking about the protesters?
No, not the protesters.
Just kidding.
Oh, my gosh.
They said, no more Cyprus.
Real shady-looking individuals speaking Russian out in the parking lot.
And they're pissed about the fact
they knew Kate was
they
here.
had their deposits held.
They had this big 1-ton truck with this big, long, like, missile-looking thing with a big tarp over it.
That is ridiculous.
I honestly think they were going around, and probably their next stop was the cherry auction. They were trying to sell some arms.
Because they have to raise money somehow, because the banks in Cyprus have been shut down all week.
Yes.
All week. So just think about this just for a second, okay? If literally all week long your bank was closed and you could not transact.
So
you can buy and sell with your debit card, of course, right? But if you were going to your bank to make a deposit or place a withdrawal, it is closed and you cannot do so. If you have a business transaction that must be done, it is closed and you cannot do so. Just think about that for a second.
Yeah, can't wrap my brain around that.
No, right? I mean, it's a big deal. And so here's what went on. So Cyprus is a very small country. It's like 0.5% of GDP of the total Eurozone. So it's small. But they are literally just it is an offshore banking country. And in fact, what's really interesting is their banking sector is about 850% of the country's GDP. So again, think about that. So their banking sector is 8 times the size of their GDP. 37% of deposits in this country are from offshore depositors, mostly Russians.
What makes it so attractive?
High interest rates. So they're paying about 5%.
Wow.
On their bank accounts, yeah. And here's UBS actually had a good. You can't get your money out, yeah.
They're going to pay you someday.
And so here's what has made waves all week long, and it did shake the markets Monday and Tuesday, and then things came back on Wednesday. But here's the deal. So they need more bailout money. Their banks they do not have enough money to fund what is going on. Okay, they made a deal with ECB that if they raise ends up being about $7.5 billion, I think it's like 5.8 billion euro, then they will get a 10 billion euro loan from the ESM, which is the European Stability Mechanism. All these acronyms. It's just basically bailout funds, right? But they're, instead of calling this a bailout, they're calling it a bail-in, because here's what they first decided. I know, it's crazy.
Are you snorting? He can't stop laughing. He can't stop laughing.
I don't get this.
Calm down.
As opposed to a bailout, it's a bail-in.
Well, I know, but here's why. It actually makes sense.
You're taking your bucket and
you're literally putting money
outside the boat and into the boat?
Because instead of like what they did with Greece, anybody who had loaned those banks money, not depositors, but creditors who had who had loaned those banks money, they took a haircut. So, I'm investing, right, I'm loaning you money, I expect to get this interest rate, and I expect to get my money back at this point in time. Well, they didn't, they took a haircut on that, right? This is actually attacking depositors. So this would be like our FDIC coming in and saying, we're actually going to tax your deposits, not on the interest that you're making, literally on your principal. And the numbers were a 9.9% tax on any deposits over 100,000 euros and a 6.75% deposit on anything less than 100,000 euros. Now, what has happened is Parliament voted this down 36-0, and there were 19 abstentions. So, nobody went for this. The problem is that the country does not have a lot of outstanding bank bonds. There's not a lot of outstanding senior loans made to those banks, so it's not like they can haircut those in order to come up with this 5.8 billion euro.
Options.
They have no other option. Well, at least we'll see. We don't know what's going on.
Nothing we want to talk about.
And the problem is that the ECB, Cyprus was cut off from the kind of the normal ECB funding last June because they were downgraded, I think, to junk status, more than a couple of notches. And so the only liquidity that those banks have right now is through this emergency liquidity assistance program. And so the ECB is saying, we'll open this up to you, but you've got to put something in. We can't just keep funneling you money.
You got to have skin in the game.
Right. So why is this a big deal? We're literally, I know it sounds like a lot of money, but we're literally talking about less than $20 billion. Not that much money. But here's,
than 20.
Which I know sounds
chump change for most people.
Well, I know, but when you're talking about, the fact that our feds have on their balance sheet at the end of this year probably close to $4 trillion, the $20 billion is okay, you know what I mean? It's all relative, right? Okay. But here's the issue, is that the thought is if depositors are allowed to be, I would say, attacked like this.
It sets precedent.
Stolen money from.
Precedents, you got it. Well, and it essentially, if you put your, we have money in our banks here, and it's a big deal with clients, especially has been since 2008, FDIC insurance.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that you don't have more in one bank than the FDIC insurance allows, right? Well, this has essentially rendered their version of FDIC insurance completely worthless.
Yeah.
So it's a big deal. And Cyprus is a very small country, but there are large economies in the Eurozone that still have very big financial issues that have not yet been resolved. Mm-hmm. And so the way our team took this was, this just goes to show, I think, that the markets can still be roiled by things going on in Europe. None of these issues have really been resolved. The news we got on Wednesday about, the Senate has passed a bill that will allow our government to be funded through September 30th. That's great. What happens on September 30th?
Yeah.
None of these issues are
I told you they're going to postpone it till we get to a election year.
You got it.
And then it'll all be on hold till that election's done. You mark my words. That's what's going to happen.
We're always 2 years from an election. Yeah. No, that's a difficult thing. So there is this contagion risk. What happened immediately, upon this news on Monday, was that the euro did drop, and it dropped below that kind of all-important psychological level of $1.30 to the euro. So, I think it was at $1. It went down to $1.29 and then kind of stabilized there. For investors out there, so how do you capitalize on this, or how do you protect yourself against it? Well, number one, I think this is why you do still want to have money in, if you've got money in U.S. Treasuries. It's why, although we've got our financial issues here, the Treasury markets can be a spot of safety when things like that go on in other countries. The other thing that's pretty obvious is short the euro. We don't think the euro is going to crash. UBS does not think it's going to crash, but they do think in the next maybe 3 to 6 months, especially depending on how this whole thing goes down, that the euro will continue to see weakness. And then, if you have a large economy like Spain in particular, if they end up needing more assistance and they need more liquidity, you could definitely see the euro drop further.
And where does it end? Really, when the day's done, where does it end as far as all these countries in Europe?
I don't know. Yeah. The thing is, for instance, with Greece, They have major problems. They're trying to get them in order, but this is not something that you fix overnight.
Right.
Which is why I was on that rant that I was on last time I was here, because, the U.S., we're going to face this situation if we don't start dealing with these things. It's not going to happen next year. It could be 10, 20, 30 years out. But, we've got the opportunity now where we've got the chance to fix it.
We've got to wait till the election.
Right, exactly.
Wait till that one's done. The next...
So this Cyprus issue has been very interesting, and I think just kind of a good eye-opener to people who thought that those issues were all put to bed. And this, again, it didn't drag the markets down, but it does. We're getting a lot of questions now, is the market at a top? Do I buy now? Is the market at a top? And so I think this just shows, hey, there are still things that could come in and disrupt. Yeah, absolutely. There is a lot of volatility, but on the U.S. side, all the things that you're saying about housing, that's been a huge positive for the economy. Energy has been a huge positive for the economy. Jobs are getting better. So that's, they're not good by any means.
Are they getting better, or are people not able to claim unemployment anymore?
Well, the last reading that we got, I want to say it was maybe 2 weeks ago, the number was down at 7.7%, but our labor participation rate was also down at 63.5%, which is I think the lowest it's been since around 2007, 2008, and it's a very low number.
Right.
And so that's not necessarily good.
So we're not seeing growth of jobs.
No.
That's the issue.
Yeah, no,
in my
people
opinion.
are dropping off the
Yeah, they can say whatever they want about unemployment, but we've got to see job growth,
right,
to make the difference.
Some serious job growth.
Yeah, and as I mentioned with the sequestration,
yes,
I was just telling Kate at the break that my son's at the Air National Guard, and he's normally on a 5-day work week. He's now on a 4-day work week.
And when did that start? Just recently?
Yeah,
because of the
probably the last 4 weeks.
Okay, yeah.
And so, I laugh and say, okay, so does that mean until September he gets to go back to 5 days a week? Or is he still at 4 days a week? Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah. I don't know. The meat inspecers will be sent back to work. So if you're a meat eater, you can feel good about that.
Because the beef lobbyists have been on them to get something going because those cows are ready to go. Exactly.
That's right.
Now that is funny to me.
I think so.
Wow.
Yeah. The whole thing is just kind of crazy. But this thing with Cyprus was very interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how they handled it. But this is the people, and really their voices are coming through the members of parliament who voted this down. Literally, there was not one vote for this bank levy.
How can you vote for that?
Yeah.
How can you vote for taxation on someone's savings?
Right, but
not on their earnings, on their savings.
So then the ECB is going to have to cave, because they're going to have to come up with the money somewhere. And if they cave, then it's then these other countries that have had to go through these real harsh austerity measures, it's that, you're going to make some people mad.
It changes the rules.
It changes the rules. You got it. You got it.
I'm thinking they better catch up with the rest of the banks here in the U.S. and charge $3 for ATM transaction.
And they will be.
We already have a bank levy.
Yeah, we just don't see it. They might be able to catch up real quick with all those closed banks.
They'll be They'll be back in business in no time. Right?
That's right. That's right. They need to talk to Bank of America to see how they do it. I'm sorry. I shouldn't single them.
All of them.
That was me.
All of them. That's all of them.
That's right.
Well, when you go to Walgreens and you use the ATM there and they charge you $3.50, and then your bank charges another $3.
Right.
Yeah, $10 a pop.
Yeah. That's to take money out.
That's a nice levy.
It's a convenience fee. Would you like to proceed?
It's a convenience fee. $10 on your $20 you pulled out. Yeah,
you can spend $10 in gas driving to the ATM, or you can spend the $3.50. However you want to do it.
Yeah, whatever works.
Yeah, we can slice and dice this anyway.
Anyway.
Wow.
Yeah. So that went on, and then if we've got a little more time, the Feds actually met this week, and they are going to continue on their $85 billion a month of bond purchases. Spending spree.
Like a junior in high school with a credit card with no limit.
There was one dissenter. I want to say it was the Kansas City Fed? Because again, the question is, are the costs of this easing outweighing the benefits? Bernanke says no.
I told him to call. I have put out the call. Bernanke, please call us. We'd like to talk with you about that decision.
We would like to, yeah.
We'd like to educate you a little bit.
Love to have him. We'd like to educate you. Wow.
But what's difficult is, they set this line that, they're going to stop the bond buying when unemployment gets down to 6.5%. Do you know how long it took us to get from 9, whatever we were, down to 7.7, and we're trying to get down another 1.2%? The caveat to that is that inflation also must stay under, I think, 2 or 2.5%, which, again, I think at some point in time, inflation is going to be unleashed.
It sounds like that's an easy out for them. Well, we're going to do it and they never happen.
But again, it's not true numbers. It's not real.
Right.
Even the numbers they're using to gauge this
Well, and there's a big controversy too about whether the CPI calculation is actually legit, because apparently, like, it hasn't really been the inputs that go into the calculation really haven't been redone, and the way that they calculate housing inflation is a little hokey. So I mean, that's always an issue. We know as consumers, inflation is more than the 1.7% that we've seen. You know, especially if you're a retired person and you've got any sort of medical costs, it's absolutely higher than that. I mean,
my premiums just went up 36%. Within the last 6 months.
And he's not even a senior yet.
Yeah.
Yikes. Yeah. I mean, we saw our premiums go up quite a bit at work as well. And I don't really feel like I'm getting anything more for it.
No, you're not.
I can tell you that much.
It's not additional services. Trust me.
No. So the feds, I mean, and here's the concern, and this has been the ongoing concern, it's going to be the ongoing concern throughout the rest of this year, is that if the feds say word one about stopping QE, what does that do to the bond market? Are rates immediately going to back up? I mean, you've seen rates come up a little bit on the mortgage side, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen them come up a little bit on the bond side. They trickled back down somewhat, especially with this deal with Cyprus. But but UBS thinks there's about 50 basis points of yield that's being held back because of the QE. So if the Fed say we're done with it, even though they're not necessarily going to turn around and then start selling those bonds into the market, just the thought that they're not going to keep buying, will rates immediately go up by 50 basis points? That's a big move.
Sure.
That would be a big move if it had happened in a short period of time.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's a fear for investors. So, back to my point about, investors are worried about, is this the market top? I would say, if you've got cash on the sidelines and you're worried because you've missed out on this big rally, I would just be careful. I would not allocate it all right now. Not to say that the market's can't continue to do well. I mean, when you look at equity valuations, where we were, like, for instance, October of 2007, the last peak that we had in the market, stocks are about 15% cheaper from a valuation perspective. Earnings are about 15% higher than they were. Corporate earnings about 15% higher than they were the last time.
Gotcha.
But valuations are fair. They're not like PE multiples and that sort of thing. Like, it's not like the market is really overheated, I would say, from a price perspective. So keep that in mind. There's definitely still room to grow, especially when you look at the thought that housing's going to continue to go up the way that it is. You've got the energy sector. I mean, that's a huge boom, those sorts of things. And your savings accounts are paying you what? Zero.
Oh my gosh,
right?
0.2%.
Zero. So, like, what's your alternative? Invest in a good stock, maybe get a 3% dividend, and that's maybe not so bad. But again, I would be cautious about putting, like, all of your money to work right now if for some reason you've missed out, because I do think that you'll get an opportunity, or at least layer it in. Like, our team uses the strategy of dollar cost averaging. Like, when we have new money or new clients coming to us, we don't plunk all the money down in any one day, because who knows what could happen. Volatility is even though it's come down, I mean, there's still many things around the globe that could affect the market. So just take your time layering the money in. If you're in the stock market, it should be long-term money anyway, in my opinion.
Thank you.
So if you layer it in over 6 months or a year and you're planning on having that money in there for 10, 15, 20 years, it's not going to make that much difference if we're wrong and the market keeps going up.
Yeah.
But nobody likes to buy and then, 3 days later the market's down 10%. You know what I mean? Nobody likes that. So I would say just kind of be cautious.
But the long term, I mean, they need to be looking over the long term.
Yes, and I think for the long term, over the next, call it maybe 10, 15, 20 years, I do think the stock market is going to make more money than the bond market. And I feel very secure, very confident in that statement.
Almost kind of
sort
pretty
of
sure.
Almost pretty sure. No. I do feel very confident in that statement. The issue is that 100% stock portfolio is not appropriate for everybody.
Exactly.
Right, and there are reasons you still want to own bonds, but still, like, if you're looking at it, if you're worried about investing at, like, the stock market high, just feel good about if you're putting the money in there for the long term. I think things are going to be okay. We're going to see dips, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
The average.
Don't put it in there if you don't expect to ride it.
Well, and don't put it in there
down.
if it goes down 5 or 10% and you feel the need to yank it out. That's not how you make money, buying high and selling low.
But I think that's the mentality that you fight as in your profession, is that this immediate gratification society, if they don't see immediate earnings, they want to run.
Right.
And so you have to slow them down. It's kind of like equity in a home. It takes time.
Right.
Sit still.
It's one of the disadvantages of technology. I honestly think. I think it does a disservice to investors because you can see like way too much, way too often.
Because your iPhone has that set where you can look at your ticker every minute of the day. Exactly. It went up and then it went down and then it went up. Exactly. Oh, that anxiety.
But it's a funny investor mentality. Like people don't want to put money in the market until it's gone up for 6 months, and it's
you're like, oops, I missed my chance.
And then it goes down, and they want to pull all their money. So it's like you really kind of have to just, if you believe in what's going on with corporations, forget politics. Like we've talked so much about politics on this show. It's a mess. It's a hot mess, and it's going to continue to be a mess.
But know what you're buying.
It is right. But know what you're buying. Right. But when you're buying, Johnson & Johnson or Coca-Cola or McDonald's, you're not buying the U.S. government.
Right.
Right. You're buying those companies. You're buying the countries from which they derive their revenues. You're buying,
which is everywhere in the companies you just mentioned.
Exactly.
International.
Exactly. So I would say, again, we're getting a lot of questions now. Like, is it, should we be buying now? And is it as attractive as it was, 6, 8, 12 months ago? No, but it doesn't mean that it's not going to continue to go up. Just because it's at the same level that it was last time when the market crashed. Right. There was a definite reason why the market went down last time, and I think that a lot of those things have been alleviated.
And you got 0.02 interest on your earnings in the bank, so let's move it on down the road.
It's the Fed's way of pushing people into risky assets.
Right.
If you pay 0 on a savings account, what's your alternative?
Yeah.
So,
got that right.
Yeah.
I am hurrying out tomorrow morning to go get that 0.2%.
0.02.
0.02.
Yeah. Where are you getting 0.2?
Where are you getting 0.2?
There's going to be a run.
That's right.
Again, if you have any real estate or mortgage related questions or questions regarding the information that you hear on our show, we'd love to hear from you. It all starts with one call, and that's a call from you. 800-979-3958. Again, that's 800-979-3958. You can also check out our resources online. Go to our website. It's a pretty cool little website, Fresnohomes.com. You can also watch past shows from the Real Estate Radio Network. Exactly. To friend us on Facebook, use Press 4 Keywords.
Friend Valley White on Facebook.
Or use Press 4 Keywords.
KMJ, call Valley White.
To call into the show anytime, during the show, after the show. We'd love to hear from you. Well, ladies, what are the 4 emotional mistakes that get in the way of a seller selling the home? And we're also going to take some listener questions. Make sure you stay with us. You're listening to the Real Estate Radio Network, helping to redefine real estate here on 105.9, the FM KMJ.
This program is brought to you by the Real Estate Radio Network. Visit realestateradio.us for more info. That's realestateradio.us.
All it takes is one call to the professionals at Valley White Homes, and you'll start building wealth in real estate. Whether you're looking for your first home, moving up, or your next income-producing investment property, let the experts at Valley White Homes help. There's never been a better time to get into the real estate market. Visit our website at reofresnohomes.com or call toll-free 800-979-3958. That's 800-979-3958. And put the seasoned professionals of Valley White Homes to work for you. Have you ever thought about going solar? It's never been easier to go solar than with a SunPower lease. You'll start saving money the very first day. Arise Solar has a team of energy consultants ready to help you determine if going solar is right for you. Start taking control of your energy costs. Contact Arise Solar, your local SunPower Elite dealer at 449-8989. That's Arise Solar at 449-8989. Or use Press 4 Keywords, Arise Solar.
Did you know that all the tickets you can buy on different websites come from the same place? Did you know that you can buy every ticket you need to any event in the country, the whole country, from Pete's Seats right here in Fresno? If that's the case, you need to call Pete's Seats. Any ticket, anytime. Sports, concerts, theater. Hey, there's seats, and then there's Pete's Seats. Premium tickets for all events, local, national, worldwide. Don't settle for a regular seat when you can get a really good Pete's Seat. Online at peteseats.net or simply 294-SEAT. That's 294-7328.
How much should I be saving? When can I retire? What can I do to ensure that my estate will be left in the hands of my family once I'm gone? Is my hard-earned money safe in today's markets?
With all the uncertainty in today's world, all of us at the Island Group know it is our job to provide answers to these questions. Walk with us, the Island Group at UBS Financial Services. Call me, Kate Island, at 559-248-4097. That's 559-248-4097, and take the first step in protecting your financial future.
All rights reserved. UBS Financial Services, Inc. is a subsidiary of UBS AG. Member SIPC.
You're You're listening to Real Estate Radio Network with local expert Craig Barton. Now, here's Craig.
Well, ladies, as the market begins to heat up, I say begins to heat up, as the market continues to heat up here in Fresno County, what do you think are the 4 most common emotional mistakes? Emotional. I'm asking your input.
Why are you trying to say that we women are emotional?
I have an answer.
Uh-oh.
I have one answer.
The 4 most common emotional mistakes that get in the way of a seller selling their home.
I think because you may have some emotional attachment to the home, thinking it's like valued one thing because of the emotional attachment. So something to do with that, like your attachment to the home. Yeah. I think that's a mistake.
Okay. I think improvements.
Like thinking your improvements
make your value better than the guy next door.
Well, there is something to be said for intrinsic value as far as improvements are concerned, because you can over-improve your property. You can make it the best white elephant.
But he doesn't care. Yeah.
But the seller, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that. I put gold-plated toilets throughout the house, and because
I'm actually going to take them out as soon as I buy this house.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So
Number 1, overpricing, getting top dollar is the dream of every seller, obviously. And in today's market, you should be able to get top dollar as long as your property is, not trashed and doesn't have a ton of deferred maintenance. And you do a good job of making sure that you present it to sell. Number 2, going to a showing. Sellers, get out of the house.
Get out.
Get out of the house. That's a big pet peeve.
Big
pet peeve.
Because nobody wants to say negative things.
Well,
about
for the showing agent who comes in with the client,
who wants somebody looking over their shoulder? Yeah, you are in the way.
We don't...
Don't mind us. Me and Harold are going to sit over here in the kitchen. We'll be right here if you have any questions.
And so then your client's looking at you like, I can't tell you how I hate that sink because they're here.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. You just can't have... It's just not the same thing.
It's not good. Get out of the house. You don't want to hear the obnoxious buyer either saying, God, can you believe the color of paint that they painted this house?
Oh, my God, this is hideous. Yeah. Rejecting early offers. Yeah.
Oh. Why? Because you think that the longer you hold out?
Yeah, you think that, okay, you just flat out reject. There's something to be said for negotiation. Let's keep the ball in the air. That's one of the terms that I use. Let's keep the ball in the air. Because if you reject it, it shows a large degree of inflexibility as far as the seller is concerned. So
let's all be nice and play in the sandbox together.
Let's keep the conversation going, and let's keep the ball in the air. Okay? And don't take offers personally.
Oh.
But that's where the emotional
piece. That goes back to what you were saying earlier, Kate. Yeah, exactly.
The gold toilet seat is not desired by everyone.
Right.
So they're not going to pay more for it, even though you paid more for it.
Right.
So that's,
probably like a pool, right? A pool is one of those things like people may or may not pay
more for it. If they don't want it and it's just there, they tolerate it, they're not going to, they don't want to pay more for it.
Right.
Yeah, sellers need to become emotionally detached very quickly from their homes because it is a business decision. And you've got to keep it that way.
Well, and I think
I'm not saying it's easy.
You have to bring it up that way too. If you want top dollar, be aware when you go buy, you're going to be paying top dollar as well. So let's keep it all in perspective.
Right, that's a good point.
Yeah, the real estate transaction in of itself can be perceived as very confrontational because the buyer wants a deal and the seller wants top dollar. So, as an agent, it's our responsibility to make sure that we negotiate and that we represent our sellers professionally. But also, let's be nice, let's be humble, let's not throw sand in the sandbox. Exactly.
Yeah.
And sometimes protecting either buyers or sellers from themselves.
That's for sure.
Exactly. The buyer says, I'm not paying that for that house, that's too much. And then we go back to the selling agent and says, well, you know what, my buyer feels a little uncomfortable that might be out of...
You translate it as,
translation.
True.
It might be a little out of their price range.
Yeah.
So do you think the seller might consider something close to, but not at that price point?
It is a good thing we have real estate agents because can you imagine
like
two
mediators.
people duking it out like a seller, an actual seller and a buyer?
It looks just like that.
Yeah,
yes,
no, seriously.
Exactly. Let's take a listener question. Joe from Fresno, my husband and I were trying to refinance the loan on our primary residence and drop the private mortgage insurance and lower our monthly payment because we told the loan officer that we were also we were kind of trying to kill two birds with one stone, get pre-approved to purchase a new home. Now, the loan officer told us that we have to do the refinance as a non-owner occupied property. Now, why is that?
Because you're not going to live in it anymore. Because that's the truthful, honest way to handle it.
So, but I think that here's the question is what is the difference in financing
Not
if
much.
you're an owner-occupied versus non-owner-occupied? I think
not
many
much.
people
Not
would
much.
know that, right?
Yeah, the interest change is not much.
But there is a bit of an uptick in the interest rate if it's non-owner-occupied.
But you
If you're
want to
renting
get
it
your
out.
biggest bang for your buck on your future purchase, because generally, 9 times out of 10, your future purchase is of higher price point. So that's where you
Right.
want to take your owner-occupant interest rate, because that's where you're going to live. That's where you're going to be investing your future funds into.
But let's just say this. Part of the issue as far as the secondary market's concerned, so those entities or institutions that set the guidelines for purchasing selling these mortgage-backed securities, it's extremely important. They want to make sure that you're representing yourself accurately as far as what your intention is that you're going to do. So if you if you refinance as owner-occupied, the intent is you are going to be within that property for a minimum of 12 months. Okay?
Is it 12 months?
It is 12 months, yeah. FHA, as an example, is 12 months. Fannie Freddie, the expectation is, and this is one of those things that's not, necessarily widely published as far as guidelines are concerned, because owner-occupied is owner-occupied. Do you live in the property? Do your taxes go there? Does your W-2 go there? Does your pay stub? Does your mail? Yeah, everything goes there. So it's owner-occupied. However, with the caveat, if in the event that you decide to leave the property, with a long period of time between the refinance and the purchase, you could explain your way out of it. However, though, if you're talking about a shorter window, you got to, let's just call it the way it is, because the last thing we want is the investor to do their quality control and deem that one of those loans, at least the refinance, was not. We can show that the purchase was owner-occupied, but the refinance wasn't really owner-occupied, or the intent wasn't there.
Well, and you don't want to jeopardize your financing for your
Future
new
home.
owner-occupied home, right? If you
and
weren't
that's one of
necessarily
the other
upfront.
caveats, is because it could put a huge kink in the hose there. So,
And if you're doing that, be sure to tell your lender.
yeah.
There's a reason.
Oh.
You may want to do one before the other,
Full disclosure.
etc. And you may do one and then not be able to do the other.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Again, if you have any real estate or mortgage-related questions or questions regarding the information that we share with you, give us a call. 800-979-3958. Again, that's 800-979-3958. Go to our website. Check out our resources online, REOFresnoHomes.com. To friend us on Facebook, use Press 4 keywords.
Friend Valley White on Facebook.
Or use Press 4 keywords
KMJ, call Valley
to
White.
call into the show anytime. We'd love to hear from you. Kate Island, UBS Financial Services. Kate, how can they get a hold of you? 248-4097.
You got it.
248-4097. Great gal, guys. Give her a call. Also, big thank you to Miss Michelle Pettis.
Hey, anytime.
Yeah, will you come back next week, please?
Are we going to celebrate St. Patrick's Day
Actually,
again?
I'm sorry. I'll see you. I'll see you at the office tomorrow morning. All right. Our goal with the Real Estate Radio Network is to get you, our listeners, the timely and accurate truth about your local real estate market, so we can help bring you
back home.
Don't forget to tune into the Real Estate Radio Network next Sunday, guys, at 7 a.m. right here on 105.9, the FM KMJ. Local news, local talk. Make it a great day, Central Valley, and we will see you next week.
The preceding program was paid for by the Real Estate Radio Network.